Okay, so into 1.3, as always, you should have already done the quiz. The quiz was super short this time. It was just 4 matching questions. There's a lot of little things in here that really, the most important things are being able to identify these angles. The rest of the stuff we're going to kind of talk about as we go. So that quiz should have been super quick. Let's go ahead and look at example 1. So it says, name the vertex and the sides of the figure. So these two things were vocab that I didn't quiz you on. But the vertex, we should know because we've talked about that before. The vertex is where the angle comes to a point. We call the sides of the angle the two rays that make it up. So these two would be the sides. I'm only going to do this once just so, again, we know what we're talking about. We know what we're referencing if these things are ever talked about. So our vertex would be what, in this case, where does our angle come to a point? Our vertex is going to be X, right? We call that our vertex. So our sides then are going to be the names of the two rays that make up our vertex, our angles. So here is one of them. What would we name that ray? Well, it starts at X and goes off towards F, so we would call this ray XF. And then we have our other ray here. What would we call that one? Well, this is starting at X and going off towards T, ray XT. So those are the sides of our angle. That's the vertex. These, therefore, are the 3 letters I would need to use in order to name the angle. So we're not going to do example 2 because we don't really need to do that again. But I do want to practice writing names for angles one more time. You were already quizzed on this, but we need a little bit more practice. Write 2 names for the angle is what we're doing. However, there's actually 3 different names we could do here. So take a moment, remember, how can we name this angle? Just write down 2, but there actually are 3 different ways. Now, we can call this just angle A. The reason why is if you said, oh, angle A, I know you're referring to this angle. Later, we're going to again have X's with 4 different angles, right? And if you just say angle A, I don't know what you're talking about because there's 4 different angles that come off of that point. But here we can call it angle A. You could have also called it E to A to U angle, E to A to U. If I can trace that with my pencil and make the angle, that's a name that works. I can also trace with my pencil U to A to E. As long as the A is in the middle, that's a correct name for the angle. So we know exactly what you're talking about. Now we're going to skip all the way down to example 9. So take a minute and turn in your packet to example 9. The ones in the middle there, we're going to talk about in class. We'll come back to that. But this stuff is super easy. Part of your lesson is going to be classifying angles. So this is what your vocab, your scavenger hunt quiz was about, was identifying these. So as need be, look back to your vocab. You got acute, right, obtuse, straight. And again, we're on example 9. So measure of angle K is 180. Look back to your vocab if you need to and see which one this falls into. Acute, right, obtuse, or straight. What do we think this falls into? This is going to be what we call a straight angle. That's because, whoops, I spelled that wrong. Whatever. That's because 180 degrees opens up to a completely straight line. A straight line really is an angle. If you see this little half sun right here, that means that's 180 degrees. If it's totally flat like that, whoop, it opens up to 180 degrees. Now, this doesn't tell us the length of the segment is 180. It tells us we opened it 180 degrees, right? A degree is a measure of how wide we're opening something. 180 degrees. That is straight. And again, that's in your vocab right there. A straight angle measures exactly 180. I'm not sure why these are out of order. I told you guys that I didn't make these notes and I should have fixed them myself. That's my fault. Skip to example 12, please. We're going to do the other ones again tomorrow in class because 12 and 13 are still classifying angles. So it says classify the angle once again as acute, right, obtuse, or straight. So we have 45 degrees. Look back to your vocab. Is that acute, right, obtuse, or straight? What do we think? This is going to be acute. The reason why is acute angles are greater than 0, but less than 90. So whenever we see something that looks like this, that means in between. So our angle is in between 0 and 90 degrees. That means it's acute. And again, think about it like an acute angle is cute because it's small, right? So that's going to be like here, yeah. That is acute angle. And lastly, here we got 175. Look back to your vocab if you need to. Is that going to be acute, right, obtuse, or straight? This is going to be obtuse. Obtuse now, again, we can write this, has to be greater than 90, but less than 180. And again, that says that right there in the vocab. Greater than 90, less than 180. You see that there as well. That's obtuse. And again, we think about obtuse as being big and whomping. So that's probably about 175 degrees. Almost 180, almost a straight line, but not quite. So again, I want to just do the easy stuff with you guys here. When we come back into class, we're going to do all those other examples we skipped, which is going to be some of the harder stuff.